Subi. All right. Thank you very much. Good evening to you all, and you're welcome to our distinguished speaker series on the most important topic in the world, foreign direct investment, which is our bread and butter for many years. Without it, many of us would not have had a job. So please, a big round of applause for all foreign investors. It's extremely essential for us to hold these meetings so we can engage with all candidates on their plans for FDI in this country. I do not want to bore you too much. I believe I've introduced all the members of the consortium, but just wave because His Excellency is here so he can appreciate all of you from the consortium. So from the consortium, we say thank you, sir, for joining us this evening. We are live on Wezo TV, we are live on Joy FM, we are also live on Novan Reports, and live on all the social media pages of the International Chambers of Commerce in the country. So ladies and gentlemen, let me not bore too much. Let's welcome Mr. Kimati Kwenye here, who will give us his brief opening remarks, and then we'll zoom in straight to the meet to hear from His Excellency. Please, a round of applause for Mr. Kimati Kwenye.
Thank you very much, Simon. It was William Shakespeare who said, the man from Stratford upon Avon, the other day, that brevity is the soul of wit. So I'm not going to talk too much. I would make just 3 important points. The first one is that we all know why you are here. When we started planning this, everybody said, why FDI? Why FDI? And the first reason is in the Constitution. The Constitution tells us that we have to encourage FDI. So it's a constitutional mandate for us. The second most important point is that we want to start a dialogue, a continuous dialogue, the private sector and the public sector, about foreign direct investments, its importance, and how we can increase it in Ghana. The third one is that we all know that foreign direct investments a decade ago was almost 4 billion. Now foreign direct investments in Ghana, as at last year, it was 1.5 billion. So it's completely decreased. And so that's the reason why we're having that. The second most important point is I want to thank the consortium. When this idea came, we wanted to have a united front in order to be able to have the conversation. So if you would indulge me, would you give us a round of applause, the consortium? This is the third of our engagement. We had an engagement with businessmen, with the current vice president in January. In April, we met His Excellency. It was a closed-door meeting. That is why you didn't see anything on social media, but that is how we wanted it to do, so we could ask them very difficult questions behind closed door. So this is a follow-up of our continuous presidential engagement, and we reached out to Mr. President if he would give a big speech on FDI, which he has agreed. But ladies and gentlemen, I think this is a good time for all of us to rise up and give a big round of applause to our president for coming and joining us, because he had to come from Winneba or where, I was in Damango campaigning, and then he decided to come. Thank you very much. Mr. President, you know what Shakespeare said, brevity is the soul of wit. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's my greatest honor and pleasure to invite to speak on FDI our former president, His Excellency, John Dramani Mahama.
Thank you very much. And let me button my jacket, as you all do. As businessmen, I know you are not people who brook too much waste of time. You are businesslike and you go straight to the meat of whatever you have to do. And so nobody has established protocol, but let me stand on existing protocol and say, distinguished captains of business, distinguished members of the chambers of commerce. It's a great honor for me to be here and to have the opportunity to share some thoughts with you. I've taken the liberty to modify and narrow the general topic you proposed to me, that is the future of foreign direct investment in Ghana, to a more focused one, to deal with proposed policies and strategies for foreign direct investment by the next government of the National Democratic Congress, the NDC, within its broad economic development agenda. This modification should provide me with the room to outline more specific interventions for which the government will be held responsible and which hopefully will serve as a basis for attracting more FDI into our country. The timing of this event couldn't have been more propitious, given that I have just this past weekend launched my party's 2024 manifesto, in which we highlight some of the issues I'll be speaking to you about this evening. The importance of FDI in economic growth is universally acknowledged among advanced and developing countries alike. The United States, for example, has been the leading attractor of foreign direct investments for decades. Such investment is a major driver of growth for the American economy, which at $27.4 trillion is still the largest in the world. In 2023 alone, America attracted $333 billion in foreign direct investments, almost 1/4 of the global total of $1.4 trillion. For developing countries, FDI is even more important because it contributes to the accumulation of capital stock, which is critical to economic growth and job creation, but has always been in short supply because of low savings in our economies. Beyond the financial benefits, FDI also contributes to technology and knowledge transfer. The development of local SMEs through mentoring and introduction to global best practices in business engagement, as well as innovation from advanced economies to developing economies. Together, these exchanges and transfers help to bridge the critical gap of low productivity and low incomes between developing economies and advanced ones. Despite this expansive and catalytic role of FDI in development, Africa in general and Ghana in particular has had relatively limited FDI inflows to support domestic capital formation. In 2023, for example, there was not a single African country in the top 20 destinations for FDI. Europe and Asia topped the list. In fact, the continent received only $53 billion in FDI out of the total of $1.4 trillion of FDI that was available. And this was the lowest of any region in the world. Developing Asia received $62.3 billion, while Latin America and the Caribbean received $193 billion. So remember that Africa received only $53 billion out of $1.4 trillion of FDI. For Ghana to target and make the most effective use of FDI, we must be mindful of the various forms of FDI. What is FDI? As described by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development in the various issues of its annual publication, World Investment Report. Now, the description of FDI is 1, mergers and acquisitions, which involve literally the merging or the acquisition of existing businesses. This is more prominent in FDI for advanced economies. And so mergers and acquisitions are huge forms of, FDI, but mostly they occur in the big economies. And so very little of these mergers and acquisitions affect Africa. The second category is project finance, particularly for infrastructure. And this is perhaps the most important for African economies due to the huge infrastructure deficit faced by the continent. The third category is greenfield investments. And these involve the construction of new factories or businesses by investors from the ground up. For Ghana, our immediate interests will be in the latter two. Although reference will be given to the other categories as we see fit within the priorities of the government's development agenda. FDI flows into the country already low in comparison to other countries at similar stages, are already low in comparison to other countries at similar stages of development, and these have stagnated or declined in recent times, a situation which may partly explain the low growth of our economy over the last decade. In 2020, for example, global FDI declined by nearly 35% because of the COVID-19 pandemic. However, inflows to Ghana fell by 51%. So even though global inflows fell by 35%, inflows into Ghana fell by 51%. And while by 2023, global FDI had recovered to 86% of the levels that they were in 2019, that of Ghana had only recovered to only about 35% of what the 2019 level was. As a rule, foreign direct investment is influenced as much by external factors such as wars or recession in the major economies as it is by domestic factors such as existing government policy and the overall business climate. While we have no control over external factors, we have the power to deal with those domestic factors that militate against adequate FDI inflows into Ghana. The issue of FDI for Ghana is even more critical now than ever before. With Ghana's default on international debts and our being temporarily shut out of the international capital markets, boosting FDI inflows for Ghana will be critical over the next 4 years in maintaining robust GDP growth. The following are some of the factors identified by some key players in the FDI space in Ghana. And the first is the proliferation of ill-coordinated and sometimes ill-conceived regulation, laws, and/or policies. The second is conflicting mandates of certain regulatory agencies. And so you have several agencies that have conflicting mandates, and they are exacting the same pound of flesh from business people. The third is violations of the sanctity of contracts and protracted and inefficient procedures for resolving business disputes. I mean, I don't need to give you examples. There are so many of such examples. We owe $134 million because we abrogated an energy contract to Trafigura, and today Regina House is placed under receivership. Poor quality of government services, such as the issuance of licenses for businesses. Macroeconomic instability has manifested in high rate of inflation and an unstable cedi, both of which make it difficult for businesses to plan into the future. A punitive fiscal regime in the form of high tax rates and the frequent and haphazard introduction of new taxes with no regard for their impact on businesses and consumers. The high cost of credit, which makes it difficult even for foreign firms with deep pockets to access working or investment capital. Corruption among government officials, some of whom make unreasonable demands of investors. And I'm sure many of you have examples of these. Inconsistencies in the interpretation of the laws related to taxation and local content policies, among others. Weak logistics network involving inefficient infrastructure for transportation, storage, and distribution, including cumbersome processes at clearing items from our ports. With respect to international trade, the business community has listed the following specific complaints amongst its concerns. The inspection of imported goods by 8 different state agencies, high benchmark values set by customs on how to assess duties, more than 20 different taxes on agricultural inputs such as seeds, fertilizer, and irrigation equipment, high import taxes on vaccines for one-day-old chicks that is not produced in Ghana and have to be imported, taxes as high as 71% on imported irrigation material. Now, if we want to produce more food, why are we taxing irrigation equipment as high as 71%? The issue of local content also appears to have incurred the displeasure of the business community, with their concerns centered on the varying and sometimes conflicting rules, for instance, on government policy on local and foreign ownership of businesses, as well as joint ventureships in a manner that should be mutually beneficial for foreign investors and Ghanaian businesses. Many of these issues are not new and have existed in various forms for a long time. The fact that they persist reflects the failure of past reforms and the need for urgent action under the next government, especially for the rapid and effective implementation of our 24-hour economic policy. If you didn't expect that, I was going to slip it in. For which we are looking forward to between 5 billion and 10 billion in annual FDI, mainly in infrastructure and greenfield investments. The Ghana Investment Promotion Center has been the primary state agency responsible for coordinating investment promotion, with the Ghana Free Zones Authority playing a complementary role. However, having previously served as Vice President and Chairman of the Economic Management Team, and later as President of this Republic, and with a bird's eye view of the overall economy and the different challenges that affect different sectors and industries, I am acutely aware that not all issues affecting FDI and the business community in general fall under the direct mandate of the GIPC. An example is fiscal and monetary policy, which affect the business environment but are under the control of the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana, respectively. Therefore, under the next NDC government, there will be both general and targeted policy interventions to create a sound environment for all businesses to thrive and to deal with specific bottlenecks that impede the effective and efficient operation of businesses in Ghana. Providing specific incentives to foreign investors to help address our investment deficits in the shortest possible time will form an integral part of the strategy to reset the economy and to bring it back from the brink of collapse. The following are highlights of priority general interventions, and I'm sure that this is the meat of my speech. And so, 1, the revocation of nuisance taxes, such as the COVID levy, e-levy, as well as the review of tax rate level to levels that are globally competitive. A new NDC government shall respect the sanctity of contracts, and I'm sure many of you are waiting to hear this, properly executed that deliver value to the people of Ghana and to the investor. Several investors have complained about the lack of commitment on the part of government to honor outstanding financial commitments in respect of goods and services that have been provided. I've taken notice of this important issue, and I want to assure all those in that situation currently that we will take an inventory of all that, and our government shall urgently work to resolve all these payment issues through a system that will be transparent and timely, just as happened when I was president. Efficiency in government spending will be implemented to weed out waste and corruption at both the national and local levels. Electricity or energy sufficiency, reliability, and affordability will be urgently worked on. rapid reform of strategic state-owned enterprises, such as the Electricity Company of Ghana and the Ghana Water Company, to make them more efficient and responsive to investors and their general clients, will be instituted. Price and exchange rate stability to facilitate business planning and management will be one of our priorities. Financial sector reform, including reduction in the cost of credit, will be on our radar. Targeted public sector reform for the efficient delivery of services to businesses through institutional reform and the effective use of technology for that purpose. Establishment of a multi-sector council chaired by the President, that is an accelerated investment and export promotion as part of the 24-hour economy, which will provide incentives for businesses with the capacity to operate 24/7 to do so, while also providing a range of incentives and support to strengthen other businesses, especially SMEs, that operate during the day to expand their operations, improve businesses, management practices, and increase their profits and create more employment. So targeted interventions will include continue, if not completed by 2025, the review of the Ghana Investment Promotion Council Act to enhance the environment for promoting investments by both local and foreign investors, to rationalize sector-specific laws to ensure that they complement the mandate of the GIPC without imposing undue burdens on businesses, to set up a team to review various laws on local content to ensure that they are mutually beneficial to both the Ghanaian entrepreneurs and foreign investors alike, to strengthen and resource the business advisory centers of all the 261 district assemblies, to decentralize investments and business support services and bring equity to Ghana's economic growth and development. Work with the Bank of Ghana and the Ghana Statistical Service to initiate the district quarterly business climate survey, similar to the monthly inflation report produced by the service, to provide detailed and near real-time information to guide government policies on the economy and businesses, to strengthen the Ghana Statistical Service and ensure its independence to produce accurate statistics that will be a useful guide to both government and private investors, to institute a biannual presidential business luncheon. You would like to hear that. You meet the president once a year at a luncheon and you'll be free to air your concerns and see how they are dealt with. And this will be rotated around the country for 2 regions per luncheon over 4 years as a way for the president to directly hear from businesses and monitor the impact of government policies on the private sector in order to strengthen those policies. And the next one, face-to-face meetings with potential investors for strategic sectors that will be selected as a launching pad for the 24-hour economy. I wish to add that while the next NDC government will work to promote investments in all relevant sectors of the economy, we will give a special focus to the following areas. 1, the extractive mining, oil and gas sector, and this will include the country's newly discovered lithium and graphite mineral sector. The digital economy, we aim to bring back many of the tech companies that operated in the country when I was president to make Ghana the technology hub in West Africa. The 24-hour economy, I'll seek the participation of FDI in the 24-hour economy, particularly in the areas of the extractive industry, construction, financial services, agro-processing, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, health services, sanitation, and waste management, and many others. The $10 billion infrastructure development program, which we call the Big Push, through public-private partnership arrangements. Export Ghana policy, the Ghana Free Zones Authority and the Ghana Export Authority, Export Promotion Authority will be strengthened to attract investment into export trade to ultimately take advantage of the enormous opportunity offered by the African Continental Free Trade Area. The African Continental Free Trade Area Investment Protocol under the ACFA will be adopted to grant opportunities to local and international investors to do business in Ghana. And I'll personally chair an accelerated export development program to promote exports and import substitution. Commercial diplomacy in the area of international trade, and I pledge to lead the efforts as President to ensure every investor is protected in this country, and that under my presidency, by the grace of God, Ghana will be once again open for business. In conclusion, let me reiterate my pledge at the launch of my party's manifesto that I will work tirelessly as President to reduce bureaucracy, promote transparency, simplify administrative and regulatory processes, and uphold the rule of law to create a friendly investment climate in Ghana. So, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much for your kind attention.